We do have questions that were written down, and if you have some more questions, please write them down and just wave down a staff person from KABA or the chamber, and we will address them. So I'm going to sit over here and just ask you these questions and then let you handle them, Senator. Don't want to steal your shoulder. First one is, how will the health care bill in conference now reduce health care costs?
This is an area I would say both good news and bad news. The bad news piece that I am still troubled by, and I kind of suggested is it's good that 30 million Americans will be covered. But the way it works is if they can't afford it, they're not supposed to have to pay more than 9% of their income to do it. There will be subsidies from the government to help them pay. That's how it works. Otherwise, they can't afford it. I'm worried that if there are not sufficient constraints on insurance rates, this could become a funnel for us to just pay more insurance company profits. Not against them making some profit. I just don't want to create a funnel that will do that. So that is why I fought for public option, and why I still am concerned on the positive side. This is a thing that maybe some of you have come in touch with. The medical community in this state says the biggest problem we have is the way we order procedures in some of these hospitals and places for profit. But certain procedures are very profitable, and that it isn't based on the patient's needs. This is what the hospitals are telling, particularly in La Crosse. Both the clinics there have become one of the national leaders in what's called value-based purchasing. Value-based purchasing, by many experts, is believed if there is a silver bullet, the silver bullet that has to do with healthcare costs. They have shown how this works. There are places in Utah and North Carolina that have done the same thing. This bill starts in the and the people at Marshfield Clinic are ecstatic. I was just with them yesterday. This value-based purchasing system, where you base it on the patient and its needs rather than profit centers within an institution, is said to be one of the greatest cost savings things possible. So that is in the bill, and I think it's, in the long run, very effective.
Why did you vote for the health care reform bill as drafted when 60% of the public is opposed to its current form?
Well, you know, I've seen a lot of different measures of that over the last year. I've seen polls that indicate substantial support. And the other factor is, why do they oppose it? It's not just people that don't want us to do anything. It's also a good chunk of people that are mad it's not stronger. So if you look at a poll that says up or down, there's a chunk of people that are against doing it because it doesn't have a public option. There's a chunk that are for it, and then there's a substantial chunk that's just against doing anything. How do you interpret it? I mean, maybe the people that don't see the public option really want me to vote against the bill. But basically, when I talk to them, that's not what they say. They want us to at least do this. The other thing is, I don't just use polls as a measure of public support. My town meetings last year, as tough as they were, ended up about 50-50. This past week, it had been 50-50. So it's a new year. I'll concede that. Of course, I've been to Washington and Ozaukee County. One might expect a somewhat negative tilt on such things. But I see there as being a very close call on this issue, at least within the state. And, of course, I can't do my job effectively by only saying 52 or 53% of people on one side or the other. That's not the end of my analysis, as much as I prefer to vote what I believe is the majority.
With the backdrop of Medicare and Medicaid mismanagement, what makes the federal government more qualified to run the health care system than the private sector?
Well, this bill does not, of course, have the federal government run the health care system. That's what many people wanted with a single payer system, but that's not what this does at all. What I described earlier, the 30 million Americans, that's through private insurance. Yes, they'll be overseen by federal agency, but we've had health insurance overseen in this state for 100 years. So this is not some radical notion. So we're not turning it over. Now, I don't know how I feel. If we really went that route, for years I've said, yes, I think a single payer system would be better than the current system. But I have favored for years a more decentralized approach, where we give the states substantial flexibility in how they achieve these things without locking in a particular system. This is a more private insurance-based plan than even that. And so I happen to think the federal government is better to do certain things. I would not want to turn Medicare over to the private sector. I would not turn the VA over to the private sector. They are flawed. But even the toughest people at our town meetings will never actually say privatize those things. So the question is, who's best to do it? And I think it's a fair debate. This bill continues with the private approach.
The government is proposing to raise taxes. Please explain how raising taxes will stimulate the economy and promote growth, especially during a recession.
Well, I know of no across-the-board tax increases proposed in the Senate bill. To talk about the health care bills. The House bill, instead of taxing the so-called, this term is resented, the Cadillac. The House bill says that instead of doing that, it wants to add a tax on people with $150,000. That is not in the Senate. One of the issues that is to be resolved between the Houses is that yes, it should be on C-SPAN. Yes, it's wrong that they're starting to do it private. It should be public. One of the biggest issues that's going to be resolved right now is whether the Senate approach, which avoids the across-the-board taxes, or whether the House approach, which is not across-the-board taxes, it's across-the-board taxes for people who afford money, which one prevails. And I know of no proposal for a general tax increase being proposed on other bills. I don't support it.
Are you going to resolve the estate tax unlimited exemption? And if so, are you going to make it retroactive?
Absolutely we have to do it. And if we do it in a way that I think is reasonable, I think we should make it retroactive. You know, this was one of the biggest scams ever pulled, where they pretended to eliminate the estate tax completely, but you had to die by 2010. So, you know, those taxes would all be dead. Okay. So this was Enron accounting. This was absolute monkey business that I screamed about at the time. But I want you to know something. I think we need broader relief on the estate tax. I oppose eliminating it. The notion that somebody that has $100 million shouldn't pay any taxes on their estate, I disagree. But I do think the purpose of the estate tax, going back to Teddy Roosevelt, was that people of great wealth should have to pay some tax. And $1 million is no longer great wealth. I wish I was worth that much. But you all know that's not what they were going after. So I personally favor raising the exemption to $5 million per person, $10 million per company. I get a great laugh in rural Wisconsin when I say, does that help anybody out here? Crowds like this one. You know, might be a few people that are helped by that. But the point is that we got to sort of face reality. That is a more legitimate measure of great wealth than current limitations. I guarantee you this will be resolved. This is one. This is not going to hang out, and I'm hopeful that it will get as close to the numbers I've just indicated.
Why do you continue to support deficit spending and huge debt? Why are you not concerned with our future generations?
It's absolutely false. No member of the United States Senate has fought harder on this issue more successfully than I have for the last 17 years. You can ask my colleagues what they think.
Why should we rush towards government-run health care with the disastrous examples of Canada and England?
Well, you know, I've met a lot of people from Canada and England. I would not want their system, but I do not get consistently negative comments, particularly from Canadians. But we're not going with that approach. As I've indicated, that's not what's going to happen. Apparently, the approach we're taking with the exchanges and that is a more similar to a German or Japanese model, where they do not have government control, but they have non-profit insurance companies that are regulated as an alternative. Sometimes it's a little system. You know, basically this doesn't directly